We look back upon the dark ages, as we call them, and take a sigh of relief, patting ourselves on our backs that as a society, we now live in the light, free from all the obstacles that we imposed upon ourselves, causing centuries of collective suffering. And we tell ourselves that this is the modern age, where the freedom of thought and the freedom of human beings are celebrated in their various cultures. But have we really come as far as we think we have? Are we only going to observe our blind spots when looking back? Inga Lehman and Rosalind Franklin, two names you've probably never heard of, but I'm sure you've heard of the Earth's inner core and DNA. Equally unheard of names such as Professor Jova, Professor Mary Scholes, Professor Kollega Mlisana, and Katherine Johnson all share the same fate. All major contributors to innovative scientific solutions in medicine, HIV, environmental sciences, and mathematics. And they all have one common denominator. They're all women. So here we are in this age of equality and the fourth industrial revolution. The disempowerment of women and people of color is no longer tolerable, especially in my country, South Africa, where the buzzword is transformation, with a huge emphasis on empowering women, technology, and skills in our country. The major question that's being asked is, how do we encourage more women participation in science and innovation, especially Black women? But very few ask an equally important question, which is, how do we retain and sustain Black women scientists in academia? The truth is, there is a clear leaking pipeline and an inability to retain Black women in academia. So my name is Ndoni Mcunu, and I'm currently pursuing my PhD at the Global Change Institute at Witwatersrand University. My focus is on climate change, food security, landscape ecology, and agriculture. Based on my experience as a Black woman in science and in response to complaints from other science students who felt the same sense of isolation as me, I then founded a nonprofit organization called Black Women in Science, otherwise abbreviated as BWIS. And just an example of the sense of isolation that I felt as a Black female scientist, in the 9 years of my academic and research career, I had never been supervised or lectured by a Black woman. And this lack of representation is just one of the many challenges that women face in the sciences. So in preparations to my talk, I found an interesting article which highlighted that due to the major investments and policies focusing on transforming our higher education, Black academics will soon outnumber their white peers, sometime between 2020 and 2025. Well, this solves all our problems, right? Unfortunately, if as far as Black women fare, who represent the majority of the population, there is still major underrepresentation in our universities, accounting for only 14% in 2015. And this situation is unlikely to improve. But why? It is not hard in 2018 for Black academics to enter into the sciences. The truth is, it's hard for us to stay in the sciences. And based on my experience, there are a number of challenges that contribute to this inability to retain Black academics. But these challenges are not unique to women, nor Black women. These are human problems that impact all of us. It's just that given the stats, Black women seem to be more severely impacted and seem to be struggling with just about all of them. So throughout my academic research career, I've been asked the following questions from family and friends, which is, uzoqeda nini? Which translates to, Will she ever finish studying? This highlights to me, in South African culture, an attitude of low esteem, as well as a very sad lack of exposure amongst Black communities as to what it means to be a postgraduate student and a researcher in academia. As a postgraduate student, with my encounters with undergraduate students, the following question is always asked to me: what is research? And is reading all you do? This showed to me that there is a need for an attitudinal shift as well as an awareness as to how we view and respect those who have chosen to pursue academia as a career. So I asked myself that why is it in a country that is in such desperate need for increased education and skills development that we're not making role models out of our academics? Maybe if we had to make education respected, valued, and represented, we would think twice before burning down our institutions. We would think twice before we choose a leader, and we would think twice on what people we choose to represent on our televisions. It is clear that there is a lack of strong, intelligent, academic women being represented on our televisions. And when it comes to the people of color, there's close to zero. Historian Benjamin Schmidt from the University of Seattle used text analysis of 14 million rankings on a website called ratemyprofessor.com, where he showed the substantial difference on the words used among students to describe their men and women faculty in the same field. Men were described as brilliant and knowledgeable, and women were described as bossy, and if they're lucky, helpful. Mainline gender research on gender stereotypes shows that women are seen as nice but incompetent, and men as competent but not so nice, justifying the domestic roles which are imposed on women and the exclusion at which we have on male-dominated fields. This submissive, intellectually inferior, and sexually objectified archetype of what it means to be a woman is still alive and well, and is being created in our subconsciousness, causing obstacles for exceptionally talented women to enter into male-dominated sectors. So, in the efforts to find a solution, my organization, Black Women in Science, ran a survey asking modern sciences students, what are the skills that you need? Interestingly, for me, many of the fellows listed the lack of business and entrepreneurship skills. This was interesting to me and helped me identify with the term I call the modern woman scientist. And this scientist I classify as one that does not want to practice science in a box, but has the urge to fit into a bigger picture, incorporating different research and business sectors into their methods, as well as adopting trans and interdisciplinary methods in their research. But this also highlights it to me that although we as women are in high demand for transformation and policy development, very few are actually asking us what it is that we need and what it is that we want. And as honored as I am to be in these platforms to represent women in science, especially Black women in science, I am not the voice of every woman in science. But yet I am called upon again and again to represent these scientists. And yes, it is true that many come up to me desperately seeking a platform to be heard. But the biggest mistake we could make is to think that an individual such as myself could represent so many different, diverse Black women in academia. We are all different, with different life experiences, challenges, needs, and aspirations. And this oversimplification and stereotyping of Black women is not serving us. By categorizing us into one is a huge disservice. There is a need for a platform where all our voices can be heard. So where to from here? I don't think I need to state the obvious that there is a need to unify academics' collective voices, especially women academic collective voices. But there's also a need for us not only to research the obstacles, but also the opportunities and the challenges and the solutions that we can have both practically and financially for the challenges that women academics face. This is the work that I have begun, and I hope by you hearing this message today, you can be inspired to continue in your own way. Secondly, I would like to emphasize that these problems are not exclusively women's problems, nor are they Black women's problems. They are human problems that impact us in this current age. And unless we deal with our very own humanity, we will find it hard to move forward. So in this golden age of African Renaissance, I ask you, are we going to continue to allow archaic mindsets to stunt futuristic evolution? Thank you.